Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this final. I know we were the last thing between you and happy hour, so we're going to make it good, okay? I'm really excited to be joining you today at Fund.AI. My name is Gozi Egbuonu. I'm the Director of Programs at the Technology Association of Grantmakers. And I am really excited to be joined by the wonderful people here on stage. So as you can see, our session is all about AI and ops, doing more with less. And I'm joined up here by two women who sit at the intersection of AI innovation and strategy in philanthropy. First, we have Chantal Forster, an independent philanthropy advisor who may or may not have had a big role in me being at TAG, AKA be my boss. And so she is why I'm at TAG today, so I'm really grateful. Chantal served as TAG's first official executive director, truthfully, and staff hire. Since her time at TAG, Chantal has been advising philanthropy teams on effective ways to experiment, implement, and monitor AI technology at their organizations. Today, she will be sharing her expert insights and tips on how funders can partner with grantees interested in using AI to tackle tough operational challenges. Chantal and I are joined by Salesforce Philanthropy's Naomi Morenzoni. Oh, I love it. That's a good one. Who serves as the SVP, Climate and Innovation Philanthropy. In her role, Naomi is responsible for ensuring innovation and excellence are never lost when partnering with nonprofits that are developing powerful social impact solutions to the world's most pressing climate issues. Well, since it's the focus of AI, since the focus is AI use in our discussion, I think it makes sense to start with defining what we mean when we say AI for operations in the nonprofit context. And Chantal, I think this is particularly fun discussion for us because we didn't go deep into that part of our partnered TAG responsible AI adoption framework that we did with Project Evidence. Shout out to Sarah DeTroia. And with that in mind, I would love to hear how you and Amy would define operations in terms of AI operations for nonprofits.
So always love having the least sexy conversation at the last moment before you're gonna have drinks. So we're gonna make it fun. You're gonna hear some sexy things that are all about ops, okay? Because ops are the things and the processes that make your business and nonprofits run. Every single one of your organizations has operations. You probably have a program around operational efficiency, and this is actually where AI can be a true game changer for you. So I'll just, from the seat that I sit in, I run a program at Salesforce called our Agent for Impact Accelerator program. It provides unrestricted funding, donated technology, and a team of pro bono specialists to swarm an agentic AI solution idea that a nonprofit might have. And I want to be clear, it's an agentic AI idea, right? This is like idea to concept to sandbox. And I loved the primer that was in the booklet that you guys got here. So for those who don't know what we're talking about with agentic AI, I'm talking about the agent that is not a chatbot, right? Which is basically a big phone tree that you're like following the points, right? This is the AI that's able to reason and is able to take action on behalf of an organization. So organizations who are constantly asked to do more with less, right, is the name of this session. These are organizations where we are extending the human capacity, extending their power to be able to serve more of their constituents by investing in those operational efficiencies that y'all are doing already that are mundane and boring and not run and sexy, and make it a lot faster and more efficient. And so our program has done about 10 million investments over the last couple years. We've served 40 organizations, all who are thinking totally differently about this.
Gozi, should I get concrete?
Yes.
Okay. So as Gozi mentioned, I'm the former executive director of TAG, and I was trying to take a 6-month sabbatical, and in month 5, 2 different foundations called me in the exact same week and said, can you please come help us deal with AI? So I've spent the past 2 years going deep with philanthropy, with Grantmakers, on how they can leverage AI responsibly. And that includes both how they operationalize AI for basic productivity for individuals, for teams, and then how they can use AI for insight. Most Grantmakers sit on piles of PDFs on a file server And to what extent can they use AI to uncover patterns in their grant-making data? So that's all a preamble to say, here's what I'm seeing in the real world people do with AI right now on the philanthropic side of the house, much of which translates very well to the nonprofit side of the house. So everything from communications, a lot of communications AI use cases. We've got folks who have drafted a chatbot that mimics their president or CEO's voice, does a first draft of things. I've seen chatbots that will translate anything you give it into according to your brand voice. I've seen crisis communication chatbots. Of course, people are using any form of Gen AI, whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude, to draft things for them. When you think about AI in your day-to-day work, it can be very helpful to think about it as part of your workflow, not a tool you just throw at something, but a component of your start-to-finish workflow. And then it becomes easier to think about, where does AI do the work? And then where do humans have oversight? And where do peers of mine have input? So that is just something that we often struggle with. But the list goes on, where finance, investments, IT, help desk, et cetera, are using AI, but we can come back around to that, Gozi.
Thank you. And as we're thinking about some of these ways that nonprofits have been using these efficiencies, I'm curious to know, is there any idea that you have, specifically you, Naomi, that you think funders could potentially do to make it easier for nonprofits to implement AI for operational use?
So I think you hit on a couple things that are really important here around this idea of like in the flow of life, right? We need to be investing in the solutions that are happening in the flow of life on the platforms where we're already operating, whether that's on WhatsApp or that's in your grants management system, those pieces, right? When we take it out of the flow of life, that's when we start losing adoption. So I think thinking about that. I think the other thing is, really, we need to lean in as funders, as individuals, on our own upskilling. You've heard this a lot today, because I think, and I'll say this from someone who sits at a technology company, we are taking AI adoption not as an adoption challenge, we're taking it as a change management. We are thinking from the very top of the house all the way down, how do we think differently about our work? How do we think about the enterprise skills that we need to have, right? The things that are uniquely human to this point of collaboration, creativity, problem solving, those things that happen there. And what gets deployed to an agent? What is an agent's job to do that is that mundane, repeatable solutions? So even taking that frame, and we have put it through, our entire company actually had 3 months to do an online training that we have free. You all can take it on the Trailhead platform for Salesforce that takes you through this learning and understanding of different types of AI that's out there, what is used for, what is best served for what, how does it work, the functions, because we needed to understand and sort of demystify that. So I think as funders, we need to lean in and invest in those solutions for ourselves as we do it, because then it's less scary, but then also those trainings and opportunity that exist for the nonprofits.
Ooh, Gozi, can I add to that? Can I go rogue just a little bit? Gozi's the boss. If you've ever worked with Gozi, she's... So, you said something, Naomi, that really struck me around adoption and what undermines adoption. One thing I've seen in the foundations that I've worked with, and now I'm at the point where we're starting to evaluate 3-6-month AI pilot evaluation surveys, and there's a very clear pattern. Adoption is correlated with proficiency. So the more proficient people feel that they are, the more they continue to use the tools, whether that's daily, weekly. I actually see a very strong correlation between intermediate to advanced usage and daily usage. Chicken or the egg, I don't know which one started it, but this correlates, Gozi, with something that we published at TAG in 2023. Emerging trends on funding technology for nonprofits. And there's a 3-legged stool that seems to be working well. It also correlates with some research I did at the Annenberg Foundation when I was their AI resident for a year. We surveyed our grantees, asking them what they wanted with regards to AI. 3 things. Gozi, do you want to just say them? Do you know what they are? I'll say them. I put her on the spot. They would like, yes, funding, but you know what the #1 need was? Access to strategic advice. And every foundation I'm working with needs the same thing. Sure, you can buy ChatGPT or you can, use Einstein, but where does that fit with the flow of life? Where does it fit with the flow of your data? Where does it fit with your overall strategy? Nonprofits, foundations both want, number one, access to strategic advice for these tools. Number two, skill building. And this goes with the proficiency piece. And then yes, funding. Even if it's micro grants for safe and secure AI tools. So this is what I'm seeing in the weeds right now, and it correlates with the 2023 publication that we did with the Tech Association of Grantmakers.
It definitely does. And I mean, it forgot my microphone. It does, and I was just even thinking about the report from Fast Forward that is circulating. If you all haven't had a chance to look at it, definitely take a look. It's really reiterating a lot of the things that we're pointing out and finding and what we saw back in 2023, where organizations are interested, but again, the training continues to be one of the things that they need to feel more proficient and willing to adopt. So definitely invest in the training. Just thinking about, as we were talking about the training and thinking about proficient use of it, one of the things that I think is really important and has made a lot of folks hesitant to adopt AI, which is the data privacy issues. And I'm really curious, as far as AI in operations, what risks should funders be aware of? And how do you encourage nonprofits to mitigate those risks?
So this morning we did a really great exercise, that handout that they provided on the responsible AI principles. And how many of you looked at that and went, oh my God, there's a lot here, right? All that long list, only one person? Okay, y'all, come on. Because I look at that and I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot here, right? What I want to be clear is the risk is real. And at companies like Salesforce, at companies like Google, a lot of the other tech companies that are here in the room, there are teams of thousands of people who are working on this day in and day out, who are thinking about the security of the AI, that are thinking about data privacy, they're thinking about toxicity, they're thinking about bias, they're thinking about ways that you can mitigate that. Platforms like Salesforce, for example, we have what's called the trust layer. With our agents, as you input information, it goes through that trust layer, it masks any of that personal identifiable information, then it's going out into the models, comes back in, it's screened for toxicity, it's screened for bias, all of that is happening. What we don't want to see is for funders and for nonprofits, all of that work, doing it yourself. We call it the DIY your AI. That is a lot of work, and it is a huge investment, and that is where we are seeing failures. So you really need to think about and invest in those trusted platforms. The platforms are transparent about the principles that they stand behind, their acceptable use policies, how can that AI be used or not be used. All of this information is publicly available. There's trainings available for you all to understand a company's position on it, because that's a big part of it. The other piece that I think is a conversation that I think is worth touching on is the other sort of conversation that's entering here around risk, which is around the resource consumption of AI. Okay, right? And this conversation around sustainability and energy and water resource, because this is going to continue to be an emerging thing. I also think it's really important for us to ground a little bit as funders that not all AI is the same, right? There's lots of AI that's been around for a long time that is not as resource intensive, right? The difference between a bicycle or a jet plane when we're talking about energy consumption. And so also knowing that the type of AI we're talking about, some is going to be more intensive. Now, even when we talk about that more resource-intensive AI, there's things that you can do. And so Salesforce just published a sustainability outlook as part of this to help guide our customers, other funders, nonprofits to sort of unpack this challenge that is emerging. And it's really grounded in 3 principles, just briefly. The first is use AI wisely, smart demand. Not everything needs to be AI. Sometimes it is a workflow, and that's cool, that is awesome, even though we want to fund AI. The second thing is around efficiency. And the models matter. You heard Nick talk a little bit about this morning around small models. This actually matters. We participate in a solution that's called the AI Energy Score, which is essentially a nutrition label for AI and the energy consumption. Now, the difference between a small model and a large model that have been disclosed is 60,000 times difference in energy consumption, right? 60,000 times. So it matters. You also, if you're trying to do a really precision work, you don't need that same AI to be able to write you a sonnet, right? So So you need to think about the models that you're using. And the third pillar of this is really around that clean power and clean supply. And so while you may not have the ability to directly influence which data center or where that's being, you are customers of these providers, and you should be asking for it. You should be asking us as a provider. We'll be asking those, where we're with our data center providers. This is the voice and the opportunity that you have to sort of raise those expectations.
I'm gonna take that and bring it home, because everything you're saying is super important. Then you may have a question around, okay, how do I operationalize that? So there are 4 things that I typically advise foundations, and this translates for nonprofits, to do when it comes to their AI governance, and that includes, managing your risk. Number 1, make sure you have your AI policy. Make sure that policy defines your data and the sensitivity of data, and classifies what tools you can use with which kind of data. So that way you can have a more robust approach for tools that you're exposing to sensitive data. So that's number 1 with your policy. Number 2, consider as part of that policy, developing your guiding principles for AI. What is your org's culture, and how does that translate into guiding principles? There are responsible AI use principles, but how does inclusion translate to your org? Do you know how the Annenberg Foundation translated it? Inclusion meant all staff get access to AI tools, and all staff get training to support them in those tools, no matter what their current level of proficiency. If your org is concerned about the environment, you might have a clause in your policy that says, we agree not to use AI for frivolous purposes in order to protect the environment. So number 1, policy. Number 2, guiding principles. Number 3, make sure you have a governance body of some sort. I typically like 2, like a steering committee at the high level, and then a working group down in the weeds. And then the 4th thing that I would advise is then developing in consultation with those groups your checklist for reviewing and approving AI tools. So that way, you don't need to DIY AI. You can go to the Salesforce website and find their acceptable use policy, document that as part of your request for a new AI tool. So once your org has that in place, everybody knows what the rules of the road are and will consistently find the documentation they need for a particular tool so it can be evaluated in the org.
Thank you. Operationalizing is key. And so I really appreciate you grounding all the great information Naomi just shared. I'm really interested to see, you talked about, the example of Salesforce and how you all are kind of the trust layer. And you said, you don't want to do the work, you don't want to take over doing too much of that responsibility. So what does that look like necessarily in terms of or keeping the human in the loop, or keeping the human at the center of decision making?
Yeah, so this is super important. It goes back to my point around there's enterprise skills, right? And there's human skills, and there's things that the AI does really well. I'm going to give you a couple examples from the accelerator, because I think it helps bring this to life. So we support an organization called Good 360. Some of you may be familiar with them, but essentially they help process large-scale donations from corporations in the wake of a disaster. You may or may not know that about 50 to 70% of the things that are donated end up in the landfill because it is the wrong product at the wrong time to the wrong community. What Good 360 does is they've developed essentially a matching agent. They look at what is donated, what is the volume, what's the weight of it, where is it coming from, what is needed, and they match it to the nonprofit that needs it. Then they're using an agent to do this. This is looking at thousands of nonprofits who have open requests for a particular product, and the agent is doing that work. It then sends a note to the essentially the program officer to say, hey, can we deliver this? Is this okay? That's the human in the loop. It says, goes back and looks. It's able to double check. Hey, was there an issue with the delivery last time? No, there wasn't. Great. It proves it, and then the agent can go on to schedule it. So again, it's picking up the things when you can't look at thousands of records and figure that out. The human brain is not going to be able to do that, but the agent can do that, and then it can take that action for it. So there's things like that. There's other things like America on Tech is another group, and it's great when you're talking about their grants management, and we're all funders here, so we're all requesting grant reports from our grantees, and we're reporting that information up. Well, America on tech has 50 reports in a given year that they have to deliver. And this is a small nonprofit. First of all, we're asking for too many reports, so we should think about that generally. But so what they've done is they have their information in Tableau, and they have an agent that can go and using natural language processing, they can say, I'm looking to do my, I need to make my grant proposal or report for Salesforce. It goes in, it looks at what was required as part of that report, it pulls the data and information, it creates a first draft for them. They're saying it's taking them from 4 days time to create this report down to 1 hour, right? So huge time savings, but they're not just gonna print the report and send it off, right? They're going to look at it just like you would have someone go out and compile that report. You'd go and you do a second evaluation of it, make sure it's the right data, are you framing it the right way? But it takes that work time down to an hour versus days, right? And that is time that is given back to this small nonprofit to go back into higher value human work that they can be using for their own programs.
So what does it mean if nonprofits are using AI to complete grant applications and reports, and then funders are using AI to process those application and reports?
Agent-to-agent communication, there's a whole...
Agent-to-agent communication is the future. Gozi, I'm going to answer the question around human in the loop, but I'm going to then ask you, because you are more than just a pretty face MC here. Your dissertation is on AI in behavioral health, where you are soon to earn your doctorate. So I want to ask you, after I answer, what does human in the loop look like in behavioral health? Because I know there are funders in that space as well, but you'll have a minute to think about it. Easy heuristics, easy practices you can do. Number one, in your policy, you can make sure that you have declared that AI will not be used for decision-making in your organization. That can be an agreement, it can be codified in your policy. We will not use AI for decision-making at our nonprofit, at our foundation. Ways to reinforce that include when you create agents or chatbots, call them drafters. You know, Kevin's grant report drafter. Call it a coach. Don't call it a writer, don't call it an author, don't call it something that looks like it's final. You want to build in that reinforcement that it is just a first cut at something. So there's many other additional tips we can go on from there, but I just wanted to give you a couple of quick practices that will help reinforce this culturally within your organization.
I'll just build it really resources for this. So also on Trailhead, we have an entire set of resources and trails that steps you through all of this information that's guided on how we believe is really important on things like your save versus edit or send versus edit button should have the equal visual impact weight. Like when you look at it, you should do both, not just be like, oh, default to the green button and it's going to send it, right? To treat it as a draft.
Some UX design resources.
Exactly. And so this is all available also in this free learning platform, Trailhead, to help guide you through this information. Because Did
you say free?
It is free. Trailhead. It's there. You just got to sign up. It's easy. And to be clear, we're not the only one. Google has these types of resources, right? I know there's a lot of other tech platform providers who also, this is the norm with companies that have made a commitment to responsible AI. They are going to make it easy for you through whatever their learning platform is to adopt this information and do it, because it's in all of our best interests for these AIs to act the way that we hope that they will.
Gozi, what does human in the loop look like in behavioral health?
Fantastic question, Chantal. In behavioral health, I think human in the loop is a lot of what you're describing, where you're kind of making that decision at the very beginning that certain decisions will never be made by the AI. So in behavioral health, the primary users of an agent the agent that I'm working on for my doctorate are clinicians and clinical teams. And we know that oftentimes clinicians are the ones that develop your treatment process, right? You wouldn't feel comfortable with an AI developing your treatment process, would you? And so in that example, the human in the loop are the clinicians, the subject matter experts, the folks that are working closely with the patients to make sure that any decision that's made about the patient is also underpinned by their expertise. So that's the human in the loop, is making sure that the expertise that is going to, make a decision or do something is followed by the humans who know what they're talking about and can evaluate whether or not it is right.
You don't need the script, Gozi. You don't
No,
need
I
it.
don't. No, I just wanted to make sure I get these questions, though. But yes, thank you for asking that, and I really appreciate it because it's an important conversation about AI and agency. We've talked about agency in the morning. I don't know if you weren't here, but Baratunde Thurston was here, and he talked about that we use agency a lot. And I think with AI and agents, we sometimes it gets a little confusing. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to really clarify, what does it mean to be a human in the loop? What does it mean to have agency? What does it mean to really utilize an AI agent in a way that's responsible and ethical? Well, thank you. That was a mouthful, and I appreciate you letting me share that. But I'm really, I'm encouraged by these conversations and these discussions and the resources that are available to you all, and especially the fact that many of them are free. But as we're really starting to close in on our time together, I think what is going to help me kind of land the plane is really understanding philanthropy and where our role is in supporting nonprofits and doing this work and doing this adoption work well. And one of the things that I'm curious to know is, how can philanthropy fund capacity building for operational AI? Not just the headline and the flashy things, but truly for the projects that are truly supporting them in a way that's meaningful and not just funding the project and then walking away.
So I think when we look at operational AI, we're going to have to put a little bit of a different hat of the sort of the KPIs and the metrics that we track to, right? These are most likely going to be indirect KPIs that are going to get there, right? So we're going to look at things like time saved, right? Are you saving people's time? With a stage where we're talking about where AI is right now, and I'm talking more on the generative and agentic AI, we're going to be starting small. We're going to be looking at a discrete problem, and we're going to be thinking about, are you saving time? Are you maybe serving more people? Are you increasing the volume that you're able to do? There's some great research that shows sort of that hockey stick that happens, right, when you sort of invest in these solutions. So there's going to be that side of it. So one, get comfortable with that. We're just going to have to I think this idea of like get all on the plane or landing the plane. Right now we are building the plane as we fly it, right? So we have to get comfortable that this is not going to look as pretty as maybe we think it could look, right? So there's that. You also have to invest. Yes, you have to get funding, but we hear a lot about this. It's the engineering or the technical talent. Honestly, if you're investing in product innovation, you should probably be hiring and funding a product manager as part of this, right? We need to be thinking a little bit differently about the infrastructure that you're providing for these organizations. We need to take this idea of operational efficiency, take it out of the Gen Op bucket that you put in your grant, that like 10 to 20%. Like, we have to think very differently about this. The technology needs to be removed and think about it more. If you want to, like a program, if that makes it feel more comfortable, because you're going to be thinking about that. So it's the wraparound services of it, because we do hear this time and time again, and you touched on this. The biggest challenge is the funding is great, yes, but like the technical know-how is the part that is anemic in this space. And we see that within our own accelerator program. We hear, thank you for the funding, the technology was great, but oh my God, you gave me 4 people who sat down with me and swarmed me. I had a technical architect, I had a project manager, I had a solutions architect, I had that whole suite of information. I had on-demand access to the ethical and humane use team. I was able to do this together with them. That is not that luxury. So we have to invest in, whether it's the nonprofits like Fast Forward that are providing this wraparound service, or the other organizations, or just being willing to fund that staff time to do that work. That's going to help move it further from just the sort of programmatic delivery or the like flash in the pan, here's a great idea, but you have to be able to maintain and sustain these programs.
Anybody want some unpublished data?
Yeah.
Okay.
The data.
So Naomi talked about your KPIs looking a little bit differently. So over the past couple of months, I have the AI evaluation survey data coming in from 2 major foundations, both over $2 billion in assets. I am surprised by what I'm seeing, and the results for both of these foundations are the same. The number one benefit that people are seeing, staff are seeing with AI adoption, and in both cases, these foundations had 85% plus adoption. 85% of their staff were adopting AI tools of their choice, whether it was Claude, Copilot, or ChatGPT. The number one benefit, and by number one, I mean like 80% of staff saw greater efficiency. Not a surprise, right? Greater efficiency when using AI. It is correlated with proficiency. So the more you feel proficient with AI, the more you're seeing efficiency result. Now here's where it gets interesting. We saw about 72% at the latest survey, but both foundations are roughly the same. 72% of staff say that AI enhanced their creativity or ideation. Enhance their creativity or ideation. I did not expect that. Number three, we saw that AI, about 67% of staff said that AI clarified their thinking. Clarified their thinking. There are a couple of other answers, but there's one that is humorous. Between 14 and 20% of staff said that AI just made them happier at work. They just, I guess, are parts of their jobs that were making them really unhappy, and AI took over that work. So I think this is unpublished, this is fast moving, but I have two sets of data points now to verify that it's more than just efficiency that are some of our outcomes with AI usage.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that unpublished data. I feel like an insider now. I hope you all do too. That's interesting. I don't know if AI makes me happier at work, but I'll have to think about that now. But we are now at our Q&A portion. So if any of you folks have any questions from myself, Chantal, Naomi, we're opening the floor for folks to ask away.
So I'm really curious, as you've been working with these foundations, how have they had to change internal processes for decision making, not just wide adoption, but also who within the organization makes those decisions on how AI is spread out?
Ooh, I love this question. So a couple of principles for how to set up your approach to AI. So number one, your governance should be, and I'm shortcutting when I say should, I've learned all this the hard way over the past couple of years. Your governance of AI should be multi-stakeholder, interdisciplinary. It's not just governed by IT, it's not just governed by communications. It truly has to be involve comms and IT and programs and legal. You definitely want legal at the table. So number one, it has to be that multi-stakeholder decision-making process. Number two, I highly recommend that you take the inclusive approach and roll out make AI tools available to everyone. Don't leave behind your executive admins and your admin team. Those people are going to be a little more at risk than others. They need to be upskilled in AI, so they're the ones that retain their jobs for the future. In terms of how you start to map your decision making, so I have found that there's a general maturity model, and I'm working on this with Project Evident to kind of define this maturity model as we launch our funder learning cohorts in Q1. So funders wrestling with AI in a small group. We'll be launching that with Sarah DeTroya and Kelly in Project Evident in Q1. But what I found is funders start by thinking about rolling out AI tools for individual productivity. You know, how does Sam use ChatGPT to do lit reviews? Then they start to mature and think about how do we use these tools across our team? Then they start to think about how do we increase our productivity across the whole org? And that's when process comes in. Because then you have to realize those benefits across the org, you have to have a certain amount of documentation of your processes, identify pain points, and then identify where the current state of AI, not the dream state, the current state of AI, can support those processes. And then after productivity, or sometimes concurrent, I see a phase around AI for insight, leveraging AI for insight, both at the individual level and across the org. So that's a very quick flyover of what kind of that internal roadmap looks like. I hope I answered your question.
I can also build a little bit on our own experience on how we started to evaluate. So when I launched the Accelerator program, I had subject matter experts who were education and climate subject matter experts. Those were our two grant focus areas. And we're in a tech company. This should be straightforward to evaluate what the right solution is from tech. And we used some pro bono and some support internally. What became really clear quickly was that I needed to actually beef up my own team's technical expertise, but I didn't hire engineers and I didn't hire development people. I hired solution engineers. These are people who are really good working with customers to identify a problem and understand the technical architect and opportunities to piece together the right solution, because they're going from a problem challenge first and the right technology solution. If you come from the code first, you're going to develop a code solution. You're not going to be driving to that challenge. And so even as you think about beefing up your own technical staff to do those evaluations, be thinking of it from that perspective. That's a different profile than just a developer or engineer or coder.
I want to add to that because this is so important. Don't ask your teams, where do you want to use AI? Ask your teams, what are your pain points? Where are your blockages? What is repetitive and time consuming? Don't ask them, where do you want to use AI? You're gonna end up buying a solution that nobody will ever use, but find where they're suffering and work on a solution.
That's exactly right. Thank you for stating that, because I think that often is something we've heard at TAG, and many organizations that are members will often say, I've been given this mandate to find where we can start experimenting with AI at the organization. I had a conversation with an international funder, a community foundation funder, and that was the exact same thing. They were like, they went to our CEO went to a conference and found out AI is really exciting, and now they want me to go research and figure out how we can start using AI today. And of course, they're freaking out because they're like, we have sensitive data, we need to figure out how to do this, we don't even have the policies. The key thing is finding where you really need to, what is the issue that you're really trying to solve, not necessarily using technology just to finding the problem that technology will solve. That's not necessarily.
Internal hackathons are really great for that. We do this all the time with our customers and our grantees. What is your problem? Trust me, you all have the solution. You already know the problem, and then you can figure out. Then you get your solutions engineers in there who'd be like, "Great, that's your problem. Let me help you find. Here's the solution set to fix that."
And I'm going to quote Alex Diaz. I don't know if he's here from Google.org. I saw him earlier today.
He was here.
I heard him say one time that AI is not the solution to every problem. And so for the guy who's leading the work on Google.org's AI work to say that out loud, you know that it's real.
You can trust him. You can trust that. Yes, exactly. AI is not the solution to every problem. Do we have any other questions in the audience?
5 years from now, are we going to be sitting at a conference talking about how we're going to use AI? I mean, what does it look like 5 years from now? You're at the front line. If everyone takes the advice that we're getting at this event, what does it look like 5 years from now for this field?
Can I just jump right in? Because, man, I want to answer that question. It goes back to what I said. If grantees are using AI to write the application and the report, and we're using AI to read the application and report, something's wrong with our processes. So I truly believe that our grant-making processes themselves will be transformed. And I hope that they will be, because I don't think that our current state is a humane state. I would love for AI to streamline our grant-making processes to provide more time for the relational. My other wish list is this. We often talk about the bias of AI, and that's real, but we don't talk about our own bias. I would love to see the first brave funder step forward and say, we have mapped our decision points in our grant-making process, and we have set up a little competition between AI and people to see where is the bias here. How can we become better as a species with AI's aid, not to exclude us or replace us, but we have some sort of an illusion that our current state is an unbiased state, and I don't think that's true. So that's my hope in 5 years, that we have done a kind of a humble self-audit of the current state of our work and have recognized where we could be better.
We call that a bake-off, actually. Seriously, we do. We try different solutions, and we have different teams work on it. It's a bake-off. So I'm going to take actually a totally different approach to this.
Weren't really sure how
We
to
don't
solve
know where we're
this
going to be in 5 years.
navigation
Let's be real. The
challenge.
pace of innovation
And then
and
the
AI
third thing
and
we
how this
saw
is changing
was
on us
the
is
advance
actually
of
laying
AI.
waste to your 5-year
And
plans.
we started to
and
realize
we as
two
funders
things
have
are
to
true.
get
One
super
is that
agile,
with
super nimble, really, really willing to throw out our 5-year plans and iterate and innovate on them, like on a 3-month, 6-month cycle. Like what we're talking about today, vibe coding, half of the stuff we talked about, by the time that becomes sort of table stakes with vibe coding, you don't know what it is, go find out about it. It's crazy. This is going to be super different. So, and the other thing I will say, and I love that Alex said like AI is not the tool for everything, because it is so true. I say it as a technology provider, like it is not a silver bullet. It's very clear. We actually have to stop the random acts of AI. Like if you take anything away from this conversation from me.
Did you say random acts of AI?
Random acts
I
of
love
AI, okay?
I'm taking it.
And you, please, everyone say that one phrase. Because right now, that is a little bit is what's going on, right? Because we're all trying to like, nonprofits are like, oh, I want my funders want to know what I'm doing. And our sustainability teams are like, well, my executives want to know what we're doing. Everyone wants to know what we're doing, but we're not starting from that clear question of the problem today, because I don't know what the problem is going to look like in 5 years. It's moving too quickly. But if I know what the problem is today, do I know where my data is? Do I have that data? Is that data clean? Like there's some really foundational problems that we have around just readiness and not even just governance. Like, where is your data? Is it clean? Do you know what's happening with it? Are you maintaining it? Or do you have someone who's maintaining? What is your process for doing that? This is stuff that has long been neglected in the nonprofit space, and we have to invest in that foundational work to really get that level set, because otherwise, the rocket ship is leaving and the nonprofits are being left behind.
So that you can take this one home. We may not know where we're going in 5 years, but if you don't have a data strategy, please send that email saying, can we add a data strategy to our 2026 plan? Because that is something we know you can start working on.
Definitely. I agree with all of this. I don't have it. I'm just going to echo what she said and say we don't know where we're going to be, but I also think that this has forced us to really start to, like, as you mentioned about data and thinking about what information we do have and what we want to do with it. I think it's really forced us to also think about collectively going to each other, multiple funders that are funding similar missions and similar things, and finally saying, where are we in our achieving our goal? Have we moved the needle? And I see AI being that enabler for us to finally say, as a sector, are we feeding all of the communities we wanted to feed in the last year? Have we helped all of these communities, close the racial wealth gap, or get it a little bit narrower than it was a year ago or 2 years ago? I see that moving where we are, because right now we're all operating from silos of information that only we have. That data piece of like, your data is only as good as it is to you. That's where we're at, and I think AI is going to help us be able to make sense of the data that we all collect, so that we can actually be able to say, fundamentally, this is where we are as a country, as a state, as a world, as far as meeting or dealing with some of these major social issues.
I just want to make an offer to this group. So one thing I've heard throughout this day has been talking to funders, not everyone, but maybe the people at the 1 through 5, like when we went around the room, like the question of I don't know how to diligence this question. And when I say that we need to move faster, the reality is there's a lot of groups in here who actually do know how to do that deep diligence. We've vetted organizations, we've set them up, we've funded them. I've done it with 40 organizations. Google's done it with probably 100 organizations. Fast Forward has it. These organizations are ready, and right now they're going 1-to-1 to each of the funders, trying to get their next round of funding on the next thing. We can do this faster. We can provide the superpowers that we have, which is our technology, our expertise, our human capital, to help get this to move faster. We need to bring the funders together and just blow this open a lot faster.
Ooh, Gozi, I'm going to drop something for you. The Annenberg Foundation and Impala are working on an AI matchmaking engine to replace the grant application, and they will be discussing that at the TAG 2025 conference in November.
At Atlanta, yes, in November 9th to the 12th. So thank you for plugging that, because that is actually a major update. I think it really leads into what I just shared about us knowing exactly where we are on making the change that we're seeking to make in the world. We have 50 seconds left, and I don't want to be any more between you and your happy hour and your dinner and your plans. I just want to take this moment to thank Naomi and Chantal for joining me on stage, and all of you for sitting through this with us for this last hour. We're really grateful, and grateful to Fast Forward and the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation for putting on Fund.AI. This has been such a wonderful experience so far, so thank you all. Thank you for a beautiful day.